Okay, so here we're going to talk about JavaFX. JavaFX is the new hotness in terms of Java graphics. The library that we've seen previously, Swing, while it still is going to exist kind of for backward compatibility and such, JavaFX is where all of the new development is happening in terms of Java graphics. So let's take a look at how to create a JavaFX application, how to get some graphics up on the screen and all that, and we'll see some things that are also related to the final exam. So here in IntelliJ, basically I'm just going to say I'm going to create a new project, and I want a Java project, and I'm just going to go ahead and click Next, and I'm not going to use a particular template or anything like that, and then I'll just say, we'll call it Hello JavaFX. Right, so there it is, and we'll go ahead and click Finish. Okay, so that will open up our JavaFX project, at least JavaFX in name anyways. And then I'm just going to go ahead and create a package. So I'll say cop 2513.hello JavaFX. Right, so there's our package for all of our code. And then we will start with our main, what is in JavaFX. What we mainly, the first thing that we need to start with is an application, right? So you notice here under JavaFX application, if we go to the application class, it gives us a bunch of stuff about the life cycle and so forth. And they actually give you a little example for that as well. So anyways, I'm just going to I'll kind of go from scratch here. So I'm just going to right click on the package, and I'm going to say new, and I want a new Java class. Okay, and we'll just call this app. Right, so there it is, and I will get rid of the little comment. And so the first thing, extends application. Okay, and the one that we want is the JavaFX application class. Okay, so once we do that, you'll notice that there is this little error here. If I hit Alt-Enter, notice it says, what do we want to do? Do we want to implement methods? So I do want to implement the methods. The only method that I need to have is start. So let me go ahead and do that. I kind of don't like that they call it primary stage, so I'm just going to kind of change that to stage. Makes it a little easier. Also, we don't actually need this throws declaration here, so we'll just get rid of that as well. Okay, so here's my JavaFX application. Right now, it's not actually doing anything. So let's kind of get stuff started here. Okay, so the first thing generally is that typically we want some sort of scene. Okay, so I mean, just to kind of give you a sense of all of this. Basically, we can create a JavaFX scene. Let me go ahead and there we go. There, we've imported those. Let's see, we don't have that particular constructor. So what do we have here? Let's see. Really? No documentation for that. How about here? Okay, let's see if we can pull this up here. So, just to give you an idea, I mean, here they have kind of a very simple setup for a scene and so forth. So we can do actually a couple of different things. Even before I sort of deal with scene and all that, minimally I can do things like I can set the title of the stage to something like Hello JavaFX, and then basically, to get that displayed, we call stage and show, just like so. Okay, so in doing this, now we have a JavaFX application. Now, how do we go about running it? One of the first things you might look at is you might say, well, wait a minute, we need to actually create a main. And we could, but it turns out if we've extended application, it actually kind of gets its own main. So all I need to do here is I'm just going to select app, and I'm going to right click, and I'm going to go to run app.main right here. And you'll see then when I do that, I'll go ahead and it'll go ahead and build it and so forth. And there it is. There's my application. Okay, so it pops open a window for us, and we can see basically the stuff that we wanted to see. Okay, so I can close that. Notice that closing that window does actually automatically shut down the application. Okay, so it's not like JFrame where when we shut down the JFrame, it didn't necessarily close the writing program. Here, we shut down that, and it does in fact stop the program. Now, one of the nice things about JavaFX over things like Swing is that the basic way that it essentially works is to use what's known as a scene graph. So what's nice about this is that there are all manner of, just like in Swing, we already have widgets for things like labels and so forth. But one of the things that we have here that we don't necessarily have in Swing is a nice convenient way for dealing with graphical shapes. Okay, so let me show you. So the way we essentially kind of deal with this is I'm going to create something called a pane. And let me go ahead and import that, right? And notice we want the one from layout pane. And I'm going to call this root, right? It's basically going to be the root of my scene graph. Okay, now, pane by itself doesn't really do a whole lot. And so what we need is we need to do a couple of things. So again, like before, we're going to go ahead and create a scene, and we'll have root be the root of our scene. Let me go ahead and run this just to kind of show you what happens now. Okay, so there it is. Nothing really looks any different from what we saw before. Okay, but now we have the ability to add additional things in to show them. Okay, now for your final exam, you're writing the game Breakout. And actually, what you're going to do in the starter that I give you for that, there's a collection of images. Okay, so I actually have those here as well. So here's images.zip. You can go ahead and download that directly. What I'm actually going to do is just copy these over from this location into my folder here. So there's source. There's the appropriate folder. So notice it does have to go in source. It's going to go right in the same package. So it ends up being in I'll show you in a minute up here, right? So it's in cop 2513 hello JavaFX, and then there's the folder. And here are a number of different images that we have available to us. So for instance, here's the image of the paddle. Okay, now I didn't draw these myself. Basically, these were actually taken by a set of free game art. So here's the site where they were taken from. Right there's the original author and so forth. And here is the actual image itself. So let me go ahead and just open this so you can see. Right, basically it's a typical sprite sheet. So there are a number of different sprites. What I've done for you is I've sort of selected out, cut out a few of these individually. So I cut out the paddle, I cut out the ball, I cut out a few of the different square types, etc. Okay, so all that stuff basically is there for you. Now let's take a look at making use of this. So we have the paddle. Okay, so ultimately, essentially, what we need to do is we want to display that image on the screen. Okay, and the way that we can do this is we can first use the image class. Okay, so I'm going to import, and notice we have actually lots of different options here. The one that I want is the one from JavaFX. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and select that, and let's just call it paddle img. And so the first thing we want to do is to initialize this. Now you'll notice in the hints for the different constructors, it basically tells us that we're specifying a string that is the URL. And the way this works essentially looks like this. So I'll say / to say start at the root of the class path, and then I'll say go to cop 2513 dot. I'm sorry. / oh no, sorry, it is dot. Hello JavaFX dot images. So there is that. And then I want the particular image, let's say paddle.png. Okay, so let me go ahead and run this, verify that I didn't totally mess that up. Yeah, let's see. We did get an error there. Yeah, so it's happening on there. Okay, so what I screwed up, actually all of these need to be slashes, just like so. All right, so the cop 2513 slash, right, so all the way down the directory structure, so that should allow us to load up the image. And sure it does. Sure enough, it does. It loaded up the image, but notice the image actually is not displayed on our scene. Okay, to do that, what we need is an image view. Okay, so I can say, okay, here is my paddle IV. There you go, I'll just call it paddle. That'll make it easier. And image view, and I can pass along the paddle image itself. We'll import that class. Again, make sure that we get the one from JavaFX. Okay, so we've taken our image, we've then loaded that into the image view directly. And again, when I run this, nothing. Okay, again, the reason for that is ultimately what I need to do is I need to add it to the root of the scene graph. Okay, that's pretty easy. So I say root get children dot add paddle. Okay, so now I'm adding the paddle to the children of the root. Let's take a look now when we run this, and still nothing. Okay, so the issue here is, forgot one other part, namely to tell, the stage what scene to use, namely our scene. And maybe I'll just move that up there. Okay, so we create the scene based off of the root, and then we tell the stage that this is the scene that we're going to use, do the rest of our setup, and now when we go ahead and run this, there's our paddle. Okay, you'll notice that all of a sudden now our window has shrunk to be just that size, right? Because essentially it's shrinking down to just the size it needs to fit that particular content. Now that's going to be a problem when we're creating a game. Generally we're going to want to specify an actual size. So let's actually do that. So suppose I just do something like this. It is not there. Rather, it is here. And fix our little deletion error. And there it is, right? So there's our paddle. We have a window that is 800 by 600. Now, a couple of things. There is a sort of a performance issue. That is, we typically want to set caching to true, so that will kind of help speed up things a little bit for us. And again, we can actually run that, and we'll see. Now, notice it appears up here. This is the upper left corner is 0, 0. So if we wanted to position it in a different place, we could certainly do that. So for instance, let me do a couple of things here. I'll just do something like, actually, I think I can do it here. Let's see. Refactor. I always forget where this is. Extract? There it is. Extract constant. Yes. Right. So there it is. Basically gets extracted out as a constant, and I can do the same thing here. So again, refactor. Extract constant, like so. So now we don't have the magic numbers sitting inside there. We basically have that. Let's actually position it a little bit differently. So obviously, if this were the game, we're going to want to, we're probably going to want it to actually appear down near the bottom here. So one is, what we can do is we can say, whoops, paddle set y, and so then I'll just say take the height of the screen minus the height of the paddle. Okay, so that's paddle dot, and then generally we can do get the image and get its actual height, like so. Okay, so basically whatever the height of the screen is, then subtract the height of the actual paddle image itself, and then we'll see, there it is. Right now it's on the on sort of the ostensibly the bottom of the screen. We can move it over. So if we want it to start in the center, then basically we can simply say, we can simply use the following calculation. We can say, okay, set it to width minus paddle get image dot get width, divide that whole thing by 2, and there we have our paddle smack dab in the center of our screen. Pretty good. Okay, let's take a look at a couple other things. Now, technically speaking, we could actually do this without this extra variable. It turns out that there is a constructor for ImageView that just takes this thing here, right? So we could just, in fact, do that. Right, and then we basically get rid of that entire that entire extra object, right? And notice again, we get that set up, and it's looking good. Okay, so that's pretty cool. Now let's put a block on the screen, and part of the reason that I want to show this is going to show you something dealing with the blocks itself. So for instance, suppose I create a block, and again it's going to be a new image view, and basically it's going to be this whole thing here again. So I'll just copy that. And then I'll just pick one of the blocks, right? So you'll notice there are a couple of different colors of blocks. I'll choose the red block dot PNG. Okay, so there's the block itself. And again, let's throw the block up on the screen. So again, just like we did with this, we're going to do the same thing for the block. So we'll say block set your cache to true, and then we'll go ahead and position the position set block. So we can actually, I'll just leave it. You know what? It's fine if it's up at the left hand corner. Finally, let's add this. Get children, add, and block. Okay. So what this will do, this will create our block for us and add it, right? So if I go ahead and run this, we see there's our block in the upper left-hand corner. Now, if you've played either Breakout or Arkanoid, you should notice right off the bat that, hey, wait a minute, that's a square. We actually want something that's rectangular. Okay, so what's going on here? Well, if you take a look at the graphics, you'll see that actually the block images themselves that we were given are in fact square. They are not rectangular. Okay, so we need to fix this. Okay, so we do see right here what the size of this is. So it's 38 pixels wide and it's 38 pixels high. All right, so the only question then is, how do we actually get this to work properly? That is, how do we get this to expand to the appropriate size? Okay, and the way that we can do this is, now we do actually have to go back to using an image here. So I'll pass along this image. So there's the image, and then we'll add in, we actually have to add in some additional parameters here, right? So if we take a look here, let's see. So image, sorry. Image view is in scene image, all right? So here, actually, scene and image. So here's the image view class itself, and we see here are the different constructors. Right, now the image class, if we take a look at that, we can see that there's actually a few different ways. The one that we can use, the one that we're going to want to use is in fact, right here. So notice, this takes the URL, then it takes the requested width, the requested height, whether we're preserving the ratio, and whether we're using smoothing. Okay, so the requested width, as we said, we basically want this thing to be larger than what it was. We want it to be 38 times 38 is 76. Actually, 38 times 2, not 38 times 38. So the width will be that. Our height will be the 38. Then we need whether we're preserving the aspect ratio. And here, clearly, we are not preserving the aspect ratio. We're stretching it out horizontally. So that's going to be a false. And then we're going to do true for a higher sort of smoothing, if you will. Let's see. We're still I cannot of image view that takes. Am I missing one? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, right, yes, sorry, I have the parenthesis, basically, this parenthesis here needs to be there, because these are all parameters for that. So honestly, let me do it this way, just to make it a little easier to see. Right, so we create the image, and then we do that. Okay. Now, if you're looking at this going, God, this is like incredibly complex, don't panic. I'm going to show you in a minute one of the classes that I'm actually giving you to make a lot of this stuff much simpler. All right, so I do that. There it is. Now, instead of a square, we have a proper rectangular block. Okay, so let me go into here, and I'm going to grab this file, and I'm going to dump this into this particular project here, and we'll take a look at this. Actually, let me do it. I'll do it this way. Sorry. Put that in there like so. ImageView game object. Okay. So first of all, the package is wrong. Since I've done that, since I've done the copying over, let's put it in the correct package like so. Oops, don't need a period there. All right. So this class, I've written to take the nastiness out of, or take a lot of the grunt work out of making use of images and image views. Okay, so essentially, if you take a look, notice this thing basically holds on to an image view. It has two constructors. Okay, so one that takes the pane followed by a string that is the URL. The other one is going to work for our block. So in addition to the root and the URL, it also takes a width and a height. All that other stuff, a preserve ratio and all that, that just gets taken care of automatically, right? So whatever the pane is, so basically we load up the particular URL, we set caching to true, and then we automatically add this to the children, to the scene graph, okay? Similarly down here, again, just like that big mess of code that we were looking at before, that is taking 2 steps here to do all of that. Again, so now we're just creating the image with all that stuff, including the extra Boolean variables and so forth, and again, just adding that. We have the ability here for subclasses to access the image view, and then we have various accessors and mutators. So for instance, there we can get the X coordinates of the image view. We can get the Y coordinates of the image view. We can get its width. We can get its height. In Breakout, a number of the things that we're going to deal with, sometimes we're actually going to want half the width or half the height, so I've created those for you as well. We can change the location, that is, change the X or change the Y. We can get the bounds, which we'll actually look at in a bit. And then I have a little toString here for sort of printing out information about that particular object. Okay, so let me show you how to patch this in, right? So now, this becomes way simpler. say this is going to be an ImageView game object, and similarly here, it's an ImageView game object, and like we said, we have to pass along the root, like so. That means we don't have to worry about caching anymore. I also don't have to worry about this, because the constructor is actually doing that for us. Okay, so that's handy. Similarly here, I can simply say that this is an ImageView game object, and this is an ImageView game object. And so here we're going to say this is the actual image that we want to use, and then we want it 76 pixels wide and 38 pixels high. Again, I can get rid of all of that. I don't have to worry about caching, and I can get rid of the code for adding, just like so. Okay? Now, in terms of this positioning, I no longer have to worry about, oh, get the image from the ImageView object, right, etc. Right? If I want the height, I just call the getHeight method on that particular thing. Oh, yes, right, sorry, needs the root. Okay, same thing here, don't have to worry about that. Okay, so it greatly simplifies the code that we have to write. We don't have to worry about all those little weird intricacies and so forth. Again, let me go ahead and run this, and you see there is the same scene going on and so forth. So pretty cool. All right, let's look at a couple of other things. Now, our application is starting to get a little on the complex side, right? So, you know, the issue is that that basically we're dealing with this application, and essentially we're going to have some main game logic and so forth, right? So in your case, in the assignment, you're basically building this. You're building breakout itself. So let me go. I'll call this breakout. That's fine. We're not going to actually implement the entirety of breakout, but it'll give you an idea of some of the things that we're going to do with this. So a couple of things that we're going to do. First, we'll have our general constructor. Here, we're going to have breakout take over the responsibility of dealing with the root of the scene graph. Okay, so that is all of this stuff for dealing with the pane directly is going to happen inside here. So we could say, okay, root is equal to new pane, just like so. Then these things will get dumped in the constructor of breakout itself, just like that. Okay, and so a couple of things going on, right? So you'll notice we do have some issues here because height and width are actually part of app. Now they are public, so I could fix this by saying app.whatever, but what I actually do another way of sort of dealing with this is to create a constants entity. And I'm calling it an entity because it's not going to be a class. I'm basically just going to use an interface here. So interfaces can hold data, and any data that's stored in an interface is public, static, and final. So I'm just going to take these here, and I'm going to dump that right inside the constants interface. Okay, so I have one place where I'm going to have all of my constants defined. Again, for the final exam, you'll see I've already actually written the constants interface for you, and I have a number of constants that you can simply use. How do you go about using these? It's actually pretty simple. So here, I should be able to, let's see, yeah, here it is, import static constant. Right? And so then I can say, oh yeah, it's the one in constants width. Now, doing that only imports width, but if I put the star here, that says import all of the constants directly from within the constants interface. And so I can just say width or height there, and we know which one we're talking about. Similarly here, I can do the exact same thing. So that is, anywhere I'm going to want to use the constants, I can simply do a static import of those constants, and I have them available to us. Okay. Then, in start, we create an instance of the breakout class, like so. And the whole idea is we have to get the root from the breakout class. Okay, pretty simple. All we're going to do create an accessor for that, like so. So now, from within app, we can ask the breakout object for the root. Okay? So notice, I haven't fundamentally changed the code. I haven't written much new code. All I've really done is changed essentially where responsibilities for different things are happening. So the app class itself is very, very simple, and then my main logic for breakout is going to happen inside breakout itself. You notice if I go ahead and run this, we'll see. We see nothing. Why did we get nothing this time? Let's see what happened. That is a good question. Oh, well, one is, yes, that's why. Because here I have the local variable named root, and I was adding all of those to that, not the real root, namely the instance variable. So there's root and root. Again, we'll run app, and now we should actually see there's our stuff themselves. Pretty cool. Okay, let's look at a couple of other things. So in your last assignment, you were dealing with different kinds of listeners, and in particular, you were dealing with different kinds of mouse listeners. The way that you deal with this stuff in JavaFX is similar, but not quite the same. So what we're going to do is notice I can call on root, the root of our scene graph. I can say on mouse moved, and then I can use just an anonymous object. I'm sorry, an anonymous function or a lambda function for implementing this. So just first, let me just say EVT. So I can have something like mouse at EVT. Okay, and as I move the mouse, you can see the various coordinates right here. Okay, so how do we actually make that then control the paddle? Well, it's fairly simple, right? So you'll notice that what I can just do in here, since now I can get the coordinates of the mouse, I can set the location of the paddle, right? Right, so that's basically what you're going to want to do. Let's look at some other stuff as well. So we have a brick or a block. We have our paddle. What we don't have, what we're missing, is the ball. So let's actually create that. ImageView game object ball equals new ImageView game object, and again we're putting it on root, and so the ball is going to be and I'll use the bigger of the two, like so. And that will basically put the ball on the screen, right? So let's take a look. There's the ball. Let's actually get it right in the center. So we can say ball set x to basically just like we did here. except instead of paddle width, we'll take the ball. And then we're going to do the same thing for the Y. To place the ball in the correct location, just like that. Now, how do we get the ball moving? Okay, so in your last assignment, you saw Java swings timers. Here, the generally accepted way for dealing with this within JavaFX is to use something called a timeline. Now, timelines can be used for all manner of different animation. We're going to do it kind of very simply here. Timeline. I actually don't need this as an instance variable for what I'm showing right now. In your case, you will ultimately want that as an instance variable, so that's fine. So we'll say, let's create the timeline itself. Do this much and go ahead and import that. Import equals a new timeline. All right, so to the timeline, we need to add keyframes. And again, I'm just going to kind of indent this. New keyframe. Now, the keyframes basically need a couple of different things. So, one of the first things we're actually going to need, well, let's actually get that imported. And let's see, do I have the right number of parens? There we go. We do have the right number of parens. Okay, so first we need to specify a duration. And I'm going to use in milliseconds. And I can do something like every 100 milliseconds. Okay, so that's when I want the, oh, actually looks like I did add in a couple of extra. Okay, so that basically says how often we want the this keyframe to fire. Okay, then in this case, what I'm going to do is just use a lambda function because I just want to show this quickly. And so inside the lambda function here, we'll see. Right, so all I'm going to do is I'm just going to do something like the following. I'm going to say ball set y to ball get y, let's say +5, maybe +3. Okay, so there I've created my timeline. Now, our timeline in this case, we basically want to set the cycle count, and we want this to go on indefinitely. Basically, just like a timer, we want it to keep firing repeatedly. And then we can say start play. There it is. Sorry, it's play. Play and stop. Okay, so let's take a look at this in action. So there we see the ball dropping down, dropping down, dropping down, dropping down, dropping down, dropping down, passes right through the paddle, right through the bottom, it's keeping going, etc., etc., etc. But you get the basic idea. Now, how can we test to see if the ball is intersecting with the paddle? Okay, well, that's where this weird looking method comes in. So it says return the bounds in parent of the image view. And you say, well, wait, what is all that about? Let me show you. This is so the get bounds basically returns what's called the bounding box. It's the smallest rectangle that contains the image itself. And in that, in fact, let me just actually write the code here so that you can see how cool this is. I can have something like this. So I can say if ball dot get bounds. Now, the bounds has an intersects method that takes another bounds. So this asks the question of, is the ball hitting the paddle. And if it is, right, so I'll do something like this. I'll say int dy equals negative dy. So we will reverse the direction that that we're going to be moving the ball. Let's see, must be effectively final. Yeah, that's right, it must be effectively final, huh? Let's see, can I... All right, I actually can't make it final because I do really want to, because I am going to need to be able to flip it like this. In your game, you'll ultimately create a ball class for encapsulating this type of thing. But for right now, we're just going to do this. We'll say dy as an instance variable is 3, and so then I don't need this part here. And then I can just simply come down and say, okay, let's use the instance variable here, like so. All right, go ahead and run this. And slowly. You know what? Let's move that a little bit faster. All right, let's go to our timeline. Let's say maybe 50. And there it goes, bouncing away. So that gives you, that's a crash course in JavaFX and really the parts of JavaFX that you're going to need for your final exam. So hopefully this is helpful to you. Again, if you have questions, post them on Piazza. If you found us on the internet, post them down in the comments.